Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, the 16th of October. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer there. So, in one word, what would I describe today and today's price action? That word would be momentum. I often hear the term, "Oh, traders love volatility, and it's very good for trading environments." Um, depending on what type of a trader you are, you may really like volatility. I, for one, really like momentum. Momentum is something that is very fun when names, like we had a couple stories today, and we've had basically this week has been just full of different stories. One of the most compelling stories that I found this week, and this was kind of starting towards the end of last week, was the financials breaking out. And, that catalyst was earnings, which I really think will be one of the big stories as we're now into earnings season and getting some of the bigger reports. And we'll get Netflix tomorrow after the close. Not sure if that's really going to move the market that much as it used to do, but we'll see. And I think some of the smaller reports are just as interesting. But number one, the financials breaking out and the regional banks having a good couple of days too. The small caps, moving higher, and they did break above their value area. Remember in yesterday's video, I talked about how I was doubting that the possibility that we would get a move higher in the small caps, but we certainly did, and a very nice move there. And today's story was a lot of nuclear, uranium, that type of move. We heard about Amazon is now looking for ways. So all of these things kind of going up in terms of, or all of these things that themes that we've got, besides what I just mentioned, but the AI trade and also Bitcoin. These things both take a lot of energy, and it faces some of these companies that are in the middle of this to get to alternative energy sources, and nuclear is becoming more and more of an option. And clearly, that was a big theme today. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. Let's bring up the indices. Again, I think it was very interesting that you're getting a lot of rotate. Besides momentum, it's a lot of rotation, right? Money's flowing one area and it's kind of flowing out of some other areas of the market. And you could see, the SPY had a good day, and SPY did what it needed to do, in my opinion, which was hold the 5-day moving average. That was the big question for me. We talked about in yesterday's video that we had basically a U-turn yesterday. But and we did bounce quite nicely here, and we are now moving back above, and we're not at the week's highs, which again is very interesting to me to see some things really catch that. Say it again, momentum. You'll probably hear me say it a few more times, but catching that momentum. But other areas, and the Qs were flat today. After the move down yesterday, we're still sitting in, so very like inconclusive, I think, for the Qs. And to me, that's fine. There are other areas that are showing, I'll say it again, you can ring a bell, momentum, and there's various other trading opportunities. Right now, they're just not in the mega cap names. And I think, when you look at, I have a watch list that I put together just to kind of spot, what's kind of moving with these big liquid names, and that's what you can call them too, instead of the Magnificent Eight, or excuse me, the Magnificent Seven or the Great Eight, maybe just the liquid eight. These are some of the biggest liquid names, but you could see the only thing that really generated some alpha today was NVIDIA, and that did close very nicely today at 137, 135.72. That held where it needed to. I'm just going to mention this really quickly because that kind of allowed me to kind of get involved in NVIDIA yesterday. It was just knowing that it went right back to support, and it held, and that was perfect. Even though it was a large move down yesterday, it held exactly where it needed to. So perfect. And I went long on that yesterday, and I took a target. It was one of the first things that I did yesterday once I realized that. So if we go to yesterday's trade blotter, let's see. This is hesitating for some reason. Yesterday, there we go. All right, so NVIDIA, I added at 130. I did take a target like right off the bat today because I thought I thought that some digestion after like some of the moves that are pre-market, but I took some profits like you see right before the open. I'm like, bang, 134, I'll take it. And it's nice to see it kind of come back for today because I think it went down to like around 131. I think I want to say, or maybe it didn't go down that far. 132 is where it went down to. This is the first hour of the day. But hey, listen, it's nice to see the biggest name hold in there. But yeah, there just isn't really much else going on right now within this group, right? It's some rotating out of these big names and into some other names. And one thing that I'm gonna come back to, which when we get these names that are going to report, no doubt they're going to push around the queues. They're big companies, but the one thing that I come back to is whoever is going to be in office, come a month later. But these names are not really liked by either one of the candidates. I think we heard Trump yesterday in an interview talk about how he thinks Google is too big. Right now, who knows if they're actually going to do anything about them, but if they'll look for like anything, they're going to look to find these companies. And they make so much money, it probably won't, the fines and so forth, and it probably won't move the needle that much. But they are just in the eye of the regulators. So I'll move on from that. Again, it doesn't mean that they're not going to ever perform again, but right now they're not where um again, I'm trying to use a different word than momentum, but they're not where the momentum is in this market. So that's a bit. So I mentioned the Qs and I mentioned SPY. I'll leave IWM. And even though, and this is sometimes how you have to kind of balance, in my opinion, you have to balance your viewpoints, right? I mentioned yesterday, I was like, hey, I don't know what drives IWM. I don't think it breaks out. I was really I give things a hard time. But hey, look at the move today. It did not close above the value area yesterday, but it gapped right over there, and it was strong pre-market. And you had a nice trending day for IWM today, finishing up 1.6%. And what was even more impressive was the micro caps. They were up 2%, I think today, 2.33% today. Now they are into some overhead supply, but still take it for, you take it for what it is. I mean, that's one heck of a move to see your riskiest companies, your smallest companies out there had a field day today. So very, very strong. Let's talk about that uranium trade. This was great. Like a member, Tribeca Trade Group member actually brought this to my attention. They said, hey, I'm probably going to be looking at this today, given it's now, how many different companies have we heard, of the large tech companies and consumer discretionary companies, like because Amazon does fall in consumer discretionary, talking about how they're looking at nuclear power. So uranium up huge today. Notice the break of the 200-day moving average. I had to chase this a little bit. It was, right around here this morning when and broke the 200-day moving average. Not the cleanest chart, like not my favorite chart, but you just know that there's going to be that it felt like that there was going to be some momentum in this group. And I looked at a couple of these. And what I like to do sometimes in uranium, the URA ETF actually had a bit of a bigger day and right into that virgin point of control. Of course, I think the biggest weight in these is CCJ, but it's not just the nuclear names, but it's also some of these power plays too, right? And because I kind of I think CEG, VST, and PWR are more power plays, but again, they're involved in a bunch of different things. But look at CEG retake that value area today, and this was up 5%. And then of course, a couple other names, and there's like two or three of these names, but I played SMR today. There was some call buying early in this one. Look at the volume in this thing today. I mean, and I stayed long this thing just because of that volume is crazy. And we'll see. I bought a little bit of calls for this week, kind of like a lotto play, and we'll see if it kind of gets going. It's a little bit down here in the after hours, but I'm hoping that we get another day. Sometimes when we see these big days like this, it's not just one day, and especially with that kind of volume. So that's what I'm looking for tomorrow is follow through. We'll see if I get it for tomorrow, but very impressive moves that happened in this space. And again, I try to participate as much as possible. Another group that I thought was interesting is, and again, like maybe this, I don't know if these are straight up election type trades. This is the American Industrial Renaissance ETF. I traded this like, I think at this point now it was like I feel like it was a couple of years ago. And this ETF saw a lot of fund flows back, again, I think it was about a year or two ago, but it's like the industrials ETF, but it's more what I call because this, I don't like this name for the ETF. American Industrial Renaissance ETF. Well, what exactly does that mean? It to me, it's like the nuts and bolts ETF, right? So for example, like it's not, when you look at the industrials ETFs, it's mostly large cap companies, right? So this is of course XLI, which has also been, the industrials have been super strong, right? And they've been breaking out and they've been showing really strong breadth within this group. But yeah, it's names like GE. Caterpillar. I don't know how Uber's in this, but Uber's in this. You've got a lot of defense names like RTX in there, right? And LMT and Eaton, right? So these are your biggest, companies. Look at the difference between AIRR, right? Some of these names you may not even have heard of, or maybe you've heard of them but not have traded them, like a Mueller Industries, a Hubble, right? GVA, Granite Construction, right? These again, you see why I'm calling them the nuts and bolts, right? Because these are the names that really get involved in making like some small components and involved in kind of the nitty gritty. Second, guys, pause this here. Just sorry, I have to take a call. So that said, a couple names, and this is what I like to do is kind of look at some of these ETFs that are doing something different, like an AIRR Renaissance, Industrial Renaissance, and like you break it apart and you look at something like this. Like this is Fluor Corporation, provides oil and gas infrastructure construction services. The company offers engineering, procurement, maintenance, outsourcing, equipment rental. So see what I mean? Like this isn't exactly like nuts and bolts, but they're heavily involved in infrastructure construction, right? And when you look at look at the volume in this one today. So lucky enough to kind of catch this one too. I had an alert on this one and kind of caught this one in the beginning of the day. So got long this one. Another one too that is, again, look at the volume on some of these things. VSEC, you probably may not have ever heard of this company before. But to me, like again, this is fun stuff. You got a name that goes from 92 to 106 that never trades like this before, right? So you look at this company, VSEC, right? Aftermarket distribution and repair service for land, sea, and air transportation assets for government and commercial markets. So again, this to me is much more exciting than like a Google going up like $1, for the day, or a Meta going up a little bit and grinding higher. When you've got something like this going on, again, it just shows that, hey, there is some really big demand for some other areas of the market. And again, if you're not comfortable, I don't blame you with playing something like this. You probably, for as many people now just trade options, which I don't really understand because I think stock is a better way to get, should be trade. In my opinion, like options are very good without getting sidetracked here. They're great for speculation, right? But they're not so great for like all your purposes of trading. But that's a whole nother conversation. And that's, by the way, how most hedge funds, like, if you've ever talked to somebody who works at a hedge fund and how they trade, most of the time, and again, it all depends on the hedge fund and their strategy, but most of the time they probably 70% of what they do is trade stock, and maybe a third of what they do, or 30% or 20%, is to speculate with options, right? To speculate, right? Or maybe they're selling some upside calls to kind of protect profits, right? And earn a little bit of income, right? Or sell, have a bit, and when they have a big concentrated stock position, when the stock goes up, they sell some upside calls, or maybe they sell some puts in a name that they like that really goes up. But in any event, you don't have to trade something like this. You can go to the ETF, and that's why I brought up that AIRR. All right, just a couple other things here to kind of go over some of the other moves today. again, there's so many of these names that are just really moving. Rocket Labs, right, which is a name I did not trade this one, but really nice follow through today. It was kind of leaning that way. Ooh, look at that upside VPOC being taken out there. Now there's another one behind there at 1209. But we'll see how it handles that one. And then the space companies, ASTS had a huge day, right? So this is ASTS Space Mobile, right? And LUNR. I know I did not put ASTS on the watch list because I actually like the LUNR chart better. And this started to make a move a little bit earlier and has made a nice move from about $7 and was over 850 today. One name that I'm watching for tomorrow. A couple names that I'm watching tomorrow. I mentioned the uranium names. I'm looking for follow through from those names. I liked what this SMMT did today. Been watching this one. Have had it on the watch list. I think maybe did I have it for the last 2 weeks? No, I just put it on this week. So look at this thing. I mean, that's actually now the best performer on my list that I've got. And again, I don't put names on a lot of times. Sometimes a name doesn't make it onto the watch list and it goes right into my to my positions, and then I don't put it on the watch list. So that's something that happens. So don't think everything that's on this list is everything that I'm trading. Not so. Like for example, the uranium didn't even make it onto the list. Right, it just went right into my accounts because again, this is names that you're kind of looking at as you enter the week, and I build on the names, but ultimately, as different stories come up, hence the nuclear story, that type of thing happens. I'm watching this name tomorrow. ALAB. Nice, had a nice move, gapped up, kind of sat in here a little bit, and is now trying to regain its 5-period moving average. So I'm going to keep tonight's video a little bit shorter because the first two videos of this week were long, and I went over a lot of concepts in those. So I'm going to keep today short. Very nice trading day. And again, sometimes it's not, if you heard my video yesterday, sometimes there's things that it's a little bit harder for my arms to get around because you have your own beliefs about what the market is going to do, but everything is a trade, right? You could participate in anything you want, even if you don't have a lot of conviction in it. It could be a day trade. But the main thing is to try to capture some of the goal is to try to make money, of course, and to capture some of these moves, no matter like if what your conviction level is around this market. If this market's going to do these crazy things like this, and names are going to go up 5, 10, 15% in a day, you try to capture it, and if you don't really like that name long term or even short term, take the trade off, right? All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.